Yo, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening, y'all? It's me coming back at you again with another live stream vid. So, before I begin this podcast, let me go ahead and test my sound levels, make sure everything's okay. I'm gonna up it up a little bit so that way you guys can hear me as clear as you can. All right, seems like everything's good to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump right into it. So first things first, happy Friday, happy weekend for everyone that's coming up. TGIF, thank goodness it's Friday. And tell me, if you ask me, man, Fridays are usually like the day of relieving stress from work, from other activities that can keep you occupied in your everyday life. But I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I'm here. I'm grateful that I get to see another Friday and I can spend the weekend with my wife and do other activities that are pleasuring. All right, so and one of those activities is getting on this live stream and give you my insights and our thoughts on today's boxing landscape, as you want to call it, and whatnot, and obviously I'd like to debate on that and have an honest discussion about those insights. So first things first, let's talk about the Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, and the Anthony Joshua and Alexander Usyk updates when it comes to their upcoming fights. So let's start with the Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury situation. So Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder 3. Shout out to Fight Doctor in the chat. Um, has it been moved? It's been reported that it's been moved to the T-Mobile Arena. It was initially reported that it was going to be held at the Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, where the Raiders play. But Lance Pugmire, I believe, who writes for the LA Times, story that the venue has been moved over to T-Mobile Arena. So far, we haven't really heard anyone confirm that to confirm this, but typically when Lance Pugmire does report something, it usually turns out to be true. So um, again, this is coming from Lance Pugmire. Not only I'm not actually, you know what? I don't know if he writes for the LA Times anymore. I know he writes for the Atlantic, so it could be that he broke the story through the Atlantic, not through the LA Times. But um, so that's what's been reported. That's the rumor mill as we speak. As we speak, T-Mobile Arena does fit around 20,000. I think that's more studio a suitable venue for a fight like this. Putting it at Allegiant Stadium, uh, I don't know. I don't know if that fight can really do 6 plus as far as attendance is concerned, given the fact that there are still some restrictions as far as traveling is concerned for the UK fans. I think UK is still going the COVID restrictions. I think those restrictions are about to ease up pretty soon. So I'm not sure if those restrictions will be eased in a timely manner where the fight is going to be held, and that's in August. Excuse me, not August, July 24th. So yeah, so we'll see as how this plays out as far as the the venue is concerned. But again, we have Bob M and or PC, representatives like Shelly Finkel or whoever representatives or Tim Scott. No, not Tim Scott. I think that's his name over at DBC operations manager. Would have to confirm whether the venue has been moved to stadium over to T-Mobile. But fair, Top Rank is the promoter on this Fury and Wilder three trilogy fight. So Bob Aaron will be the one who will have to provide the answers on it, unless Pugmire broke the story from his source, which Bob Aaron. Who knows? We'll see. But as we do know, the fight's taking place. The PBC Fox has now begun to promote it, which I'll get into a little bit later in this live stream, because Deontay Wilder gave a interview, which I deemed controversial, to Ray Flores. So yeah. All right. As far as the other update is concerned, Anthony Joshua and Old Usyk. Now, there's been ramblings about this particular fight and whatnot. So it's been reported after the Fury Joshua fallout, as far as their fight not happening. As far as when that fight fell through, the WBO immediately called for not exactly immediately, they days later called for the Joshua Alexander Usyk to be made. Shout out Mr. Boxing Today, brother. So Joshua was given from, let's see, I think 21st of May. At the point, he was given 10 days to negotiate with Alexander Usyk to come up with an agreement. Otherwise, if time period the negotiation period expired, then he would be required to he and Alexander 16 would be required to enter a purse bid. But before it got to that point, before it gets to that point, if obviously it's a bit choppy. Let me try to work on it because I'm on a headset that's kind of like not so great. Let me try to change it up. How about now? Is my mic okay? Haplo? Is my mic okay? I know my internet's running a little slow for some reason. I don't know if that's YouTube. No, I don't think it's my internet. My internet's fine. I don't know if it's YouTube or the streaming. I don't know what's going on. Well, how's my mic sound? Is my mic still choppy? All right, cool. Thanks a lot, Mr. Boxer, today. So, anyhow, Hearn is mentioning, thanks, Aplo. So Hearn is mentioning the fact that they are going to consider other options other than, what's up, Bruce Ghost? Um, they're going to consider other options other than Alexander Usyk, although Usyk is their primary choice of opponent. So here's my thing on this, and I think Mr. Boxing today and everybody else can agree with me on this one. When you have a fighter or its promoter come out and say that yes, we definitely would like to fight our mandatory challenger, but we are considering other options. When they mention when they either one of them mentions something like that, that means they're planning. To me, that seems like they're trying to avoid the fight. Now, the reason behind that is because Alexander Usyk put out a short video along with his promoter, Alexander Krusyak, I believe that's his last name. Um, they put out a short snippet video that word is simple and sweet. He said that, "Hi Eddie, I want more money, Eddie. I want money." So from that perception, a lot of the Joshua diehards and sycophants, I hate to call them that, sycophants, but actually, I don't apologize for calling them that because that's what they are. Sycophants. They come out and say that Usyk is being greedy. He's trying to play hardball in the negotiations. I'm like, well, if you're going to look at this situation objectively, what's happening here is that where there is either a or a one-way rematch clause or two-way, well, whatever the case may be, Joshua and Hearn wants a rematch clause to be put in place for this mandatory fight to go through. Usyk, as a mandatory, is not required to oblige to a rematch clause. He's not required to do that. Okay, so he could say no. I'm not agreeing to rematch clause. I'm taking this to purse bid, and if I win that purse bid, you still got to fight me. Even if Joshua wins the purse bid, and this is what Hearn has been alluding to, even if it goes to, they're going to vacate the belt. Why? Because even if Joshua and Hearn wins the purse bid, they cannot get the rematch clause. And that's what they're fighting over. And that's just my view on it. And if they want that rematch clause, if they want Usyk to agree to that, they're going to have to pay for it. just like they paid Povetkin, just like they paid Pulev to get the rematch clause. They're going to have to pay for it. And it just seems like so far there is no indication they're willing to pay for that rematch clause. But to be fair to them, since they have gotten an extension to negotiate with Usyk, it seems like they are working to find some middle ground to get this fight over the line. So there is some what's up, Percy? What's good, man? So there is some bit of encouraging news in that area, and then again, Usyk is not required to agree to a rematch clause because the mandatory challenger, mandatory fights, challengers are going to get the fight regardless, unless they decide they want to pull out on their own merit. In this case, Usyk really wants to fight. And again, if you want to give him that, if you want him to agree to the rematch clause, you're going to have to pay for it. Hearn and Joshua's going to have to pay for it. I know the AJ sycophants or diehards don't want to hear that, but that's a fact. If you want to be rational about the situation and be honest, that's how AJ get his fights in London against Povetkin, and that's how he was able to get his fights in London against Pulev. Knowing if those guys did not get what they wanted out of those negotiations, they're going to take that fight with Joshua to a first bid, and Joshua's team would have lost if they didn't give him what he wanted. So in this case, could be the same situation with Alexander Usyk's team. Mind you, Usyk had backers that's behind him in Ukraine. So don't think he can't win the first bid. I think Hearn knows. He knows who his backers are. And why do you think Hearn is alluding to the fact that if he goes to the first bid, if we can't cut the deal, we're going to vacate the belt? All right. Now, to be fair, though, I like to be fair here. I like to be impartial. If they were to vacate the belt, is it disappointing? Absolutely. But I do understand where Joshua is coming from because if you look at his career, and it's a very relatively short career, banged up, and he's a very vulnerable champion as we speak. So I can understand where he's coming from. You don't want to have that mental pressure, as you want to call it. You don't want to have that continued mental pressure to be fighting tough opponent after tough opponent after tough opponent, or I should say, dangerous opponent after dangerous opponent after dangerous opponent. And Joshua has shown a consistency of doing that. And let's be fair to him. So I can understand if they want to go ahead and give up the belt. Okay, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt or the benefit. All right, a duck is a duck. Okay, when a champion gives up his belt because he refuses to fight as mandatory, that's a duck. Plain and simple. No question about it. Now, does that mean that Anthony Joshua is scared of Alexander Usyk? No, of course not. I don't think he's scared of Alexander Usyk. The point is, and this is the truth here, is that Joe Hearn knows that this is a very dangerous fight for them. Regardless what you say about Usyk, about his performances in heavyweight, with his two fights, but this is a very tricky and dangerous opponent. Yes, his power is questionable, but he can hurt you. He can hurt you. He's got very good boxing ability. He's got very good ring IQ, very good foot speed, very good hand speed, a southpaw. So that makes him extremely dangerous. So that right there is that's something that Joshua knows and Hearn knows that they're up against. They know it. So if Joshua vacates the belt, I will give him the benefit of the doubt, but at the same time, it's a duck. There's just no other way of describing it. It's a duck, plain and simple. And to the AJ diehards and the sycophants out there who are saying, "Oh, this is not a duck," because AJ has defended his belts against mandatory after mandatory, while Wilder and Fury have been ducking out of fights. They ducked him, blah blah blah. I get all that, but the fact is that has nothing to do with Anthony Joshua avoiding the Usyk fight. If it comes down to that, that has nothing to do with it. So bringing up Wilder and Fury does not support your argument. The fact that Joshua ducked out of the Usyk fight, if it comes down to it. All right. So when a champion gives up their belt because they refuse to fight their mandatories, whatever the situation is, it's a duck. Plain and simple. And furthermore, this could come back to haunt Joshua if he were to do this. When Joshua went after Tyson Fury on social media after their fight had fell through, and he rightfully blasted Tyson Fury because Fury was playing games throughout the entire process, okay? And he can't be trusted. So he is a fraud, no question about it in some regard. But Joshua did say in that first tweet, that first post when it came to Fury, he says that please let a real champion step up and fight me. This is what Joshua says. And Joshua also said that I am a fighter fighting champion. I'm gonna defend my belt against all comers. I mean, against dangerous threats, against all mandatories. This is what Joshua said. If he does not go through this fight, that will come back to haunt him. It will, and rightfully so, because you said when you criticized and went after Tyson Fury for the reason why, and blame him for the reason why he didn't go through, and rightfully so, he should be blamed for that. And you said that I want a real champion to step up and fight me and present something good to the table, and that champion is Alexander Usyk. Usyk is a Olympic gold medalist, a very, very decorated amateur, very extensive amateur career. Beat everybody and beat everybody at cruiserweight. All the best that was put in front of him. Usyk went on the road and fought all these guys, and he took their belts, all of them. He went to fought Tony Bellew in his backyard, knocked him out. He went and fought Derek Chisora in his backyard, beat him. So Usyk is a guy, and he's rated one of the best pound for pound best fighters in the world. Say what you want about him, but he's a very legitimate opponent, a dangerous opponent at a heavyweight. So um, Joshua has to take the fight. If he doesn't want to do it, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But he has to take criticism for not taking the fight in some regard because of what his past statements about mandatories. He has to take criticism for that. And I know this again. The diehards don't want to hear that. The sycophants of AJ, they don't want to hear it. But this is the reality of it. And let's be honest here. If this was Deontay Wilder or Tyson Fury who was trying to duck out of mandatory fights, and to be fair, Tyson Fury did duck out of a mandatory fight. He ducked out of the Dillian White fight when the WBC mandated him to fight Dillian White. You know what Fury said? He said, "quote I will not allow a sanctioned body to dictate my fights, and I'm not going to allow them to tell me what to do." Okay, well, in this instance, Hearn, speaking on behalf of Anthony Joshua, said the same thing when it comes to Usyk. And yet, none of these diehards criticize Hearn for saying that, while they criticize Fury for saying the same thing when he ducked out of the Dillian White fight. Okay, then. Do you see the double standard? You see where I'm going with this? So please, I like to always point out, let's just have some consistency when it comes to criticism of these fighters. What's up to D Style in the chat? So let me go look at the comments right here. Uh Mr. Boxing today says, well, before I get to that, Fight Doctor says that I'm becoming more and more convinced that Hearn is just a bad businessman. I mean, he's not bad of a businessman. He's actually a very good businessman, but as far as how he deals and negotiate with fights, you do have to question it a little bit. Be fair with Eddie Hearn. Yes, I've criticized him, but the one thing I could say about him is that just like Al Heyman, he treats his fighters pretty much extremely very well. He treats them very well, and I haven't recalled not one fighter who's taken Eddie Hearn to court over a dispute over a purse or over a monetary agreement in the contracts that they've signed. I've never seen one fighter taking legal action against Hearn in that regard. I've seen many fighters taking Frank Warren to legal courts. I mean, to legal action over a monetary dispute. Don King, Bob Arum. So yeah, it seems like Heyman and Hearn are the only two that have faced that type of situation with their fighters, because their fighters respect them and they take care of their fighters. So you have to give them both Hearn and Heyman credit for that. I know this is mainly about Eddie Hearn, so I just thought I'd bring up Al Heyman you know, as another component because I know he gets criticized for the matchups he makes. So, and rightfully so. Um, Mr. Boxing today, oh, D Style says Logan Paul is gonna win. Is that your prediction, D Style? Well, if he wins, then hey, I got to give you a medal, brother. I mean, that would be. I mean, I know it's an exhibition bout, so if it was a professional bout, then that would be the first loss on Floyd Mayweather's career. So, and that's embarrassing too if he loses to a YouTuber. Even if it's an exhibition, he loses. It's embarrassing. But who cares? I mean, it's not something seriously that we shouldn't take it seriously. But the way they're promoting this fight, it does look very serious. And you look at the size difference between Paul and Floyd Mayweather. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ. But Floyd's expected to win because skills does matters more than just size in some regard. So we'll see how that plays out. I think that fight goes down this Sunday. Am I correct? Not the Saturday, but the Sunday. Um, Mr. Boxing today says he's replying to Bruce Goes. He said Dubois versus Dinu. And Adjikabayel is finally coming back to the action this weekend against Kevin Johnson. Yeah, I'm starting to get some decent, heavyweight action. I mean, Daniel Dubois versus Bogdanino is an interesting matchup. Spectre knockout because those guys will definitely be swinging for the fences. Adjikabayel, he's fighting Kevin Johnson. I mean, well, Cabello hasn't fought in a long while now, so I guess it's he's fighting on European level. So I guess fighting Kevin Johnson is it's okay for him. So I'll give him some, credit if he wins, which he's expected to. So, yeah. Um, he styles says Logan Paul's going to land that big right hand. Well, we'll see about that. Paul's going to get KO'd. Yeah, I agree with Bite Doctor on that one. As much as I don't like Floyd, come on, man. Are we seriously going to believe that Logan Paul actually has a chance against Floyd Mayweather? Okay. Yeah, I know all those sickle fans said who didn't like Floyd said the same thing about Conor McGregor. I mean, to be fair, Conor McGregor is a legit fighter. Logan Paul is not really a legit fighter. Yes, he's got some skills. He spent some time at the Mayweather gym along with his brother Jake Paul. Yes, they show some bit of skills, but they're not. I mean, to be fair, Jake is probably taking it more seriously than his brother Logan. Because I mean, I guess it's not fair for me to say that because Logan hasn't really been consistent at fighting as opposed to Jake. So, um, but the fact is that they're not seasoned. They're not well established. They're not. I mean, again, this is one of those fights where it's entertaining, where Floyd Mayweather will carry his opponent like he did with McGregor. And that's what's going to happen. That's what's gonna happen because look, when Logan Paul fought KSI, come on, man, he was fucking confused and he was very timid about throwing his punches in that fight in that rematch. Not the first fight, but the rematch. In the first fight, he was teeing off on KSI, then he tired out. Maybe that's what he was worried about. It was his more of his endurance going into that rematch, because Logan Paul is he's very muscular and he's carrying a lot of muscle. And what happens is when you carry all that muscle, it does become detrimental to your conditioning as far as stamina is concerned and endurance. Bruce Gold says, "Yeah, yes, sir. I watched the big boys looking to see what Dubois has. Good weekend as usual. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So we'll see. We'll see. Uh, Mr. Boxer today says, look at Paul's face when he realized Mayweather punches harder than he anticipated. It's gonna be hilarious. Yeah, man, it's gonna be a very funny fight. I'm just saying. I'm just being honest. It's gonna be a very funny fight. Don't expect Logan Paul to win that fight. None at all. None at all. But if you do put money on him to win, and if it comes out to be, I mean, true, then you won a lot of money. You'll probably become rich if you put money on Logan Paul. Percy says, I think the fight's going to happen. I think you're referring to Joshua versus Usyk. Okay, yeah, I hope it happens, but I just don't like to hear a promoter or a fighter come out and say that if we don't get our way in negotiations, we're going to vacate the belt. We're going to consider other options. I mean, I don't like to hear that. I mean, you said you're gonna fight. You want a real champion to step up and want to make a deal to make the fight happen. You got Usyk right there waiting. He's trying to make the fight with you, and you're trying to, leverage your rematch clause. In which, in actuality, you don't. You don't have leverage to get that rematch clause in a mandatory fight with Usyk unless you pay him what he wants. If you want that rematch clause, you're gonna have to pay him like you pay Povetkin and Pulev. Um, Let me see. D Style. I think D Styles is trolling with this one, man. But shout out to the brother D Style. D Style says that Paul's doing this for his people and that they were told they can't do anything, something impossible. I mean, okay, well, we'll see. I guess it's a fair statement. Uh Fight Doctor says Usyk has done nothing at heavyweight. Okay. Let me ask Fight Doctor and everybody else this question. Who was Joshua's last opponent? Who was his last mandatory? Kubrat Pulev, correct? Now, Pulev is a natural heavyweight. I get that. But let's mind you, and let's put this into consideration. Kubrat Pulev, before he fought Anthony Joshua, sat on his mandatory position for 4 years with the IBF. There was a time that he was mandated to fight Joshua, I think in 2018 or 2017 or something around there. I think it was 2018 or 2017. He was mandated to fight Joshua, then he pulled out of the fight 10 days later before the fight. He pulled out. Before that, he rejected the IBF mandated fight with Joshua a year prior to that and still maintained his position as a mandatory. Okay. And what was Kubrat Pulev doing at the time when he was foregoing his mandatory shots against Anthony Joshua? Who was he fighting? What? Oh, blown up Samuel Peter, who's not even ranked, who's not even legitimate world fighter anymore. I mean, fighter on world level at that point, who was grossly overweight, out of shape. Kevin Johnson, Huey Fury, Derek Chisora. I guess I'll give him credit for that one. Bogdan Dino. I mean, come on, man. You seriously believe that Kubrat Pulev was worthy of a shot at Josh at that time compared to Alexander Usyk? Really? See, I've been asked a couple of Joshua diehards to answer that particular question. They struggle to answer it. So um, let's just be honest here. If you're gonna crap on Usyk, then you should crap on Joshua on fighting Pulev because Pulev was not a good mandatory. Even though I gave Pulev some credit because I thought he was a legitimate heavyweight. He was rated top 10 here and there on some occasions. He was a legitimate opponent for Joshua. I give him credit for that. But at the same time, you can't tell me that Kubrat Pulev is a better mandatory challenger than Alexander Usyk. He's not. He's not. And what did he do to deserve to get that shot other than, forego his mandatory shots against Joshua on few occasions? He did it. That's a fact. He's done that on few occasions over the last 4 years or 5 years. D Style says, I saw a video that this kid said Logan Paul has the ability to turn his dreams into reality and he will utilize this versus Floyd. Well, I mean, I guess that's a pipe dream, but we'll see if it can happen in boxing. I guess Logan Paul has the ability to visualize what he visualizes and turns it to reality. Paul visualizes a W over Floyd. Well, I mean, he may visualize it, but he needs to come into realization that he may not be able to win that fight. It's good to be confident, but don't get overconfident because the guy is way smaller than you. So I don't expect Floyd to be, fight him toe to toe, but I'll be surprised if he does. How can you deny that? He's a visualizer into reality. I'm not denying it, just that sometimes reality, uh, reality does supersede fantasy. So in this case, he's fantasizing the fact that he will be Floyd. So, but he could prove me wrong. He could prove all of us wrong. Oh, so Blood's supposed to be on our live stream with Mad Chad on Holmes versus Spinks too. All right, cool. I have to check that out. Bruce goes. Ron Finke. Oh, hey, what's up, Ron Finkel? What's up, man? Ron Finkley, man. Yeah, good brother. Let's see. Uh, Haflo says that they're using Mayweather tactics against him, picking and choosing who they fight because of the social media weight that carries them. Neither Paul has fought a real boxer. Taking on Floyd is a no-brainer. Yeah, absolutely. It's a no-brainer. He's retired. He's 44 years old. He's definitely not the fighter that he used to be, even though he keeps in shape. But let's be real. Floyd Mayweather is not that fighter. He's not that fighter anymore because as you get older, your reflexes changes. You slow down. Your hand speed decreases. Your power is going to be the same, but Floyd Mayweather is not known to be not he's not known to be a concussive puncher, but he did have respectable power. But obviously that diminished over time because of his hand injury. So he was using xylocaine to mitigate that, and that's a fact. Let's see, Joshua never made a career of fighting new hoppers without a question. Yeah, no hopers. I'm sorry, no hopers without a question. Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, Joshua's had a very good career. I mean, still continues to have a great career at heavyweight. There's no question about it. What I'm saying is that again, all the people who say that Usyk is crap, he's not worthy of a mandatory shot against Joshua, then explain how Kubrat Pulev was worthy of a shot when he virtually did nothing for the 5 years before he finally took the Joshua fight. He virtually did nothing for 5 years after that beating he took from Vladimir Klitschko. Nothing at all. And yet you want to crap on Usyk, who have far better pedigree than Pulev? Okay. Larson. Floyd gonna whip that dude. Yeah, I know D-Top was bullshitting. I know he's trolling with that. I was just playing along. Let's see. Let's see. All right. So, anyways, let me move along here and see what my next Next topic here. Let me see. Percy said, "What do you think of Floyd's new hair?" Well, he's finally got, he's growing his hair. So, uh, so we'll see, we'll see. And Percy's, let me see. Ronald Finkley says, I kind of want Floyd to get KO for taking the stupid fight. You know what? Me personally, I don't care. I just, I despise Floyd as a fighter when he became Money Mayweather. When he was Pretty Boy Floyd, I had all the respect for him. But I mean, as years went by after that De La Hoya fight, he started to degrade fighters before him. He was carefully selecting his opponents, but hey, he was in a position to do that because he was the arguably the number one cash cow at that time, right behind Manny Pacquiao. So, Pacquiao was behind him. So, he was. So I should say arguably he was actually the cash cow, the pay per view king. So, but he did say a lot of stupid things or controversial things to get people to hate him. And that's where I get the sense about Deontay Wilder too. And I want to get to that one in a second, and I'll explain why. So if he does get KO, I mean it will look fucking bad, given the fact that Pacquiao, who is they're roughly in that same age department, and Pacquiao is 2 years younger than Floyd, he's still fighting these young and prime opponents. I mean he fought Keith Thurman, beat him, and I know Thurman was coming off injuries and this, that, and the third. But the fact is, Thurman was primed to win. He was undefeated, and he was favored to win that fight. So, and furthermore, he's fighting Earl Spence. I know Earl Spence is coming off a car accident, but when he fought Danny Garcia, it didn't look like he took much of a scratch in that fight. He looked very good. He was very poised. He picked, he it looked like he didn't lose a step in that fight against Danny Garcia. So, um, if Pacquiao could pull that off, it beat Spence, dude. I mean, I could see why people could argue why Pacquiao's greater than Floyd because Floyd wouldn't even dare to do that at that age. He wouldn't dare to do it. Look what Floyd's doing right now. He's taking on exhibition bouts here and there, which he's within his right to do that as a retired pro fighter. But look what he's doing compared to what his rival Manny Pacquiao is doing. So, so yeah. So yeah. Look, if Floyd gets KO, it is what it is. But I don't expect him to. All right, let's see. Pulev was as worthy as Usyk. Yeah, I agree with that fight, Doctor. But my thing is that again, a lot of the AJ fans, the sickle fans or fanatics, not say fanatics, sickle fans are claiming that Usyk is not worthy of a mandatory shot. I like for them to explain to me why Pulev was as opposed to Usyk, and they can't do it, or they're struggling to explain that. So yeah, let's see. Yeah, shout out to you, D Style, as always. Ron Finkley says, "Hey man, I thought you were LDBC channel at first, man. Sounded familiar." Nah, let me say this, man. I really have no problem with LDBC. I mean, I have invited a few of those guys on my channel before, and we always kept the conversations respectful. I know there was times when a few of them get on here, and then there's other people that I got along with that they didn't like, and I kind of kept the thing peaceful between those parties. You know what I'm saying? Whenever you come on my channel, we keep everything neutral. We'll go at it from time to time, but look, man. At the same time, I don't agree with almost everything they say, and that's a fact. And I'm going to get into that later with the Deontay Wilder situation. So, they respected my opinion, and I respect their. I mean, to an extent, I don't agree with everything they say, but they don't disrespect me. So, yeah. But at the same time, not just them. It's also other people too that grift off their name just to create super chats. So I'll get into that later, man. I'm gonna pretty much call all sides out on that. Um, JD, what's up, JD? JD says that Usyk is the one ducking AJ by not coming to an agreement and hoping for a purse bid, knowing AJ's team will not enter a purse bid because he won't be guaranteed a rematch clause to ensure his other belts. Well, I'm not sure if Usyk is the one ducking here because Usyk is a mandatory challenger, and as I stated on several occasions, JD, a mandatory challenger is not required to agree to a rematch clause. They're not required to do it. They're going to get the fight no matter what the circumstances are. They don't have to agree to a rematch clause to get the fight with the champion. So I don't understand how Usyk is the one ducking when he's the one that doesn't have to agree to a rematch clause. If he wants to take it to a purse bid, then he's within his right to do it as a mandatory challenger. If he wins that purse bid, he wants to make the fight. So how could he be the one ducking just because he wants to go to a purse bid? I know. As you say, Joshua and her are the ones that are coming out saying if the fight goes to a purse bid, we're gonna vacate. First of all, that's their choice. Alexander Usyk is not telling them to vacate the belt if they go to a purse bid. All he wants is the fight. If you want to get the rematch clause with him, he wants to be paid for it. Just like Povetkin was paid for it, just like Pulev was paid for it. That is fair. I don't see why that's a problem now all of a sudden. So, yeah, all of what did I miss? I don't know much, man. We're going over, Fury Joshua situation. Hold on here. Let me highlight it. Yeah, we're going over not exactly Fury Joshua. We're going over Wilder Fury 3. Where the new venue. I heard they're gonna move the venue from Allegiant Stadium to T-Mobile Arena, but that hasn't yet been confirmed. But the state is still. I'm sorry, the date is still locked in for July 24th. Um, whatnot, and so forth. And we're talking about the Usyk and Joshua situation, which is a heavy trending topic right now on what they're going to do. What we do know is that the WBO has granted an extension, um, which Joshua's team had put in. They've requested it. They have been granted an extension to negotiate with Alexander Usyk. So that is encouraging a sign for them to make the fight. But again, I do not like to talk about, like to hear when they're saying that we're going to vacate the belt if we don't get what we want out of the negotiations, if it goes to a purse bid. And again, we it's safe to assume that this is all about getting that rematch clause. That's what this is all about. Again, Usyk does not have to agree to it. He's not required to do so. Um, JCG says, "Look, I believe." Hold on here. Why is it this thing so slow popping up? Forgive me, guys. Okay, I believe he has a right to as a unified champion. Look, Joshua has a right to do what he wants to do. I'm not arguing that. He has a right if he feels that he needs to get a rematch clause in the contract in a mandatory fight. Then he's within his right. So be it. But the rules are the rules. Joshua's not above that rule. If he wants a rematch clause, and if his opponent accepts, fine. But as I said before, I'll say it again. He realized that he's going to have to pay for that rematch clause, and it appears that her and his promoter are trying to find a way around that. They don't want to pay Usyk. So how can you ask for something that's not required by a sanctioned body in a mandated fight? So again, he can ask for it. He has a right to do that. But in this particular situation, he knows that he's going to have to give in to Alexander Usyk's demands to make that fight. Let's be real. They're going to have to. They're going to if they want that rematch clause. No other way around it. They're going to have to. AJ can do. Ronald Finkley says that AJ can. Come on, get this statement up. AJ could do anything, drop the belt, and still demand crowds, regardless of everybody else stock goes down. Well, you are right to an extent in that one, Ron Fink. And here's the thing: is AJ above the belts? I guess that's what we're getting at here. Is he above the belt at this point of his career? On many occasions, I'm a fighting champion. I'm gonna defend my belts against all mandatories, all legit challengers. I'm not giving these up. I worked hard for them, and I like that. That's a mentality of a throwback fighter. But if he vacates that belt, then he's being a hypocrite in that situation. So um, again, does that decrease his stock if he doesn't go through his Usyk fight? Not really. I don't think so. But as far as everybody else's stock is concerned, I don't know. I mean, Wilder and Fury. I mean, from the looks of it, they can make a lot of money without AJ right now. But to be fair, they will make more money if they fight him, and they know that he's the cash cow. They know that. So Uh, so yeah, to your point, yeah, he can still draw crowds, yes, but it does not look like it's not a good look if he vacates that belt and if he doesn't fight Usyk. So it is a bad look. Fight Doctor says that Team Usyk should realize they have little to no leverage here. Technically they do. And you know what that leverage is? I don't have to accept the rematch clause. You know why? Because I'm a mandatory challenger, and the sanctioned body that we're fighting, the sanctioned body, which is the WBO, they specify, along with the other sanctioned bodies, that rematch clauses are not required to make the fights happen. So if they say no to the rematch clause or the deal that's presented to them, they have a right to decline that deal and let it go to first bid. They're going to get the fight regardless. So they have leverage here, and that's the thing about mandatory fights, and that's why some of these champions don't want to go through these mandatory negotiations because they know these mandatories are going to get what they want just to make the fight, and that's why they end up dropping the belts. They're mandatory challengers. Um, so yeah, uh, AJ's unifications are greater than all the other heavyweights. He's still getting the better situation overall, in my opinion. I mean, I guess it's a fair statement, Ron. But again, does this really hurt Joshua as a fighter? No, it doesn't. But it does hurt him as far as his past statements concerned because he hasn't really avoided any fights. Technically, he hasn't. Yes, he's avoided a couple fights in the past. That's mainly the Luis Ortiz, and then he eventually he offered Luis Ortiz a fight. Back in 2018 when Jarrell Big Baby Miller fight fell through. I get that, but the fact is, if he does not fight Usyk, he clearly ducked the fight. So again, it doesn't hurt him as a fighter as far as his overall confidence is concerned, but it does warrant criticism if he doesn't take that fight because this is a prime opponent that he could be potentially face here. So yeah, I really hope he goes through the fight. He has to take it in my view. I think AJ is a better established than any other heavyweight in the world. I mean, yeah, he has a better resume, no question about it. He does, but he's still in his youth, and as far as his prime is concerned, yeah, he's still in his prime. But it is it's worth pointing out that he is vulnerable. He's more vulnerable than the other contenders or the champions like Fury. Obviously, Fury, we don't really know about his chink of his armor yet. Wilder definitely has a chink in his armor. White has a chink in his armor. I mean, all the heavyweights are vulnerable. Fury at one point will lose the fight. He will lose a fight. Now it's possible he'll lose his fight against Deontay Wilder, and I'll get to that very shortly. So um, yeah, let's see. JD says that a purse bid doesn't benefit Usyk at 20%. So that tells me Usyk wants to fight for a vacant belt against Joyce. Then if when AJ beats Fury Wilder, Usyk can leverage for undisputed. Well, look, I get he's getting 20% because that is the set threshold by the sanctioned body. I think Usyk does not mind that at all. What it is that he wants the fight. Okay, the fact is that if you want that rematch clause, he wants to be paid for it, just like Povetkin and just like Pulev. I think that's fair. What look, the point is that Alexander Usyk, what he's doing and what he's trying to leverage here, which he does have leverage, by the way, it's nothing wrong what he's doing. I mean, he's using the same leverage as did Pulev and as did Povetkin. So my thing is why is this a problem now for Usyk to use the same leverage tactics like those two guys did against Joshua, but yet nobody complained about it when they got what they wanted. No one complained about that. So I don't understand that. Now, as far as the 20% is concerned, shout out to Big Boys in the chat. He made up a good point. Usyk would better taking the deal pre purse, which is set for it. So even if it's at 20%, that's still pretty much a higher payday that he would get fighting Joe Joyce, regardless of the percentages. So let's be real. uh, Eric Stewart says that AJ is going to vacate that WBO. Just watch. You know what, man? They have indicated they will, but I mean, I hope he doesn't, man. I really hope he doesn't. JD says that most unified champions get the rematch clause. It's a bit different from a single belt holder, in my opinion. Well, yeah, look, it doesn't matter if you're a single belt holder or not. When you're a champion and you're a champion, you are within your right to get that rematch clause. You have earned that right. But again, I do understand Joshua trying to get it because he's using the angle as a defending champion, and I understand that. But as a mandatory fight, the mandatory challenger does not have to agree with it. He's not required to. So that's the rule. You may not like that, but that's the reality of it. And that rule has existed within the sanctioned bodies for many, 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 many years. So this is nothing new, JD. Nothing new at all. Uh, Kiwi over at Big Boys, aka Big Boys, or actually Big Boy Boxing, aka Kiwi, says that yep, get the Usyk fight done, AJ. Yeah, exactly. I think he has to fight Usyk. I mean, who's the other legitimate opponent that's out there for him to fight? A Dillian White rematch? I mean, we've seen that fight before. I mean, Dillian White, it's not a bad fight, but do we really want to see that at this point? Andy Ruiz third fight? I don't know sure about that one. Um, I mean, who's left other than Wilder and Fury? And they're tied up right now. We all know that those two fights have fell through for AJ. So Usyk is the next available opponent there. Take that fight. Um, Ron Fink who says that are they still extending the negotiations? Yeah, they've extended it. That was put out yesterday. I think when Hearn gave an interview with IFL, he mentioned this that they've extended negotiations, or the WBO has granted their extension request. So again, that's a positive sign that they really are trying to work to get this fight over the finish line. But again, that's up to Usyk to decide if he wants that rematch clause or not. Or if he wants to give AJ the rematch clause, again, he doesn't have to unless he's paid for it. And then again, Usyk's team is arguing that they're waiting on Anthony Joshua to decide what he wants to do. So I'm not sure if they sent the counter offered over to Anthony Joshua and his team for them to accept. So we'll have to see how this plays out, man, because the longer this thing drags out, there's a good chance that Joshua won't be keeping that WBO belt. And it's sad too because he's lost the more time in his prime. He should have he should have fought already because usually he fights what twice every twice once every 6 months, which is twice a year. So, and the last time he fought was in October of last year, and we're about 4 months away from October. So it's almost a year since he's fought, nearly a year. Well, it's about over 6 months now. So we'll see. Hey, Fight Doctor says that Joshua doesn't need that WBO trinket. Well, Fight Doctor, he may need it now because he's not the lineal champion. Tyson Fury is. So Tyson Fury has that linealship, and Joshua doesn't have it. Unless Joshua had that linealship, then your argument would have been what's the word? It would have been nullified. So or rectified, I should say. So yeah. Ron Fiki says I love Matchroom Boxing. Yeah, Matchroom's put on some very good shows, like it or not, and they're going global too with their brand. And like love or hate Eddie Hearn, I like his business approach. I like the fact that he has a visionary mind that he wants to expand all over the globe. Kind of like Vince McMahon, what he did when he bought the WWF at the time from his father, Vince Sr., which was more of a territorial company back then. And obviously, Vince Sr. respected those ground rules. And Vince Jr. decided to come in and break those norms and decided to evade everyone's territory. And he eventually bought a lot of these old territories back in the day. And then he eventually expanded his brand, the WWF, before it became, at the time, it was WWF. And then he changed it to WWF for short for World Wrestling Federation, and then he expanded globally with the names of Hulk Hogan, obviously Hulk Hogan. Then he had Randy Savage and those guys, Rick Rude, Ultimate Warrior. So I see that visionary mindset from Eddie Hearn, like I've seen in Vince McMahon over the years. So uh, you can't knock Eddie for that. You can't. And he's starting to have a very good footprint here in the United States. So he's starting to find his market, his niche here. So he's starting to understand the market, and he had to learn the hard way. So I really praise him for that. In fact, I do like. It's very encouraging to hear when Hearn says that now that we have expanded our relationship with the zone, we're gonna bring all our UK fighters. Pretty much, he said, I'm gonna bring most of my UK fighters over to the US because this is a more crucial and viable market than the UK. No disrespect to the UK, but as I said a while back, you can only go so far in a very small market. You can only go so far. Eddie Hearn realized that. He understands that the earning potentials and the revenue and the profile building is more so here in the United States than the UK, and that's a fact. Even one predominant AJ supporter, I'm not gonna name who it is, even acknowledged that Anthony Joshua may have to come back out here to the States and take on tough fights to build his brand, to build his not only build his resume, but strengthen his profile and build his popularity. Joshua's going to have to do that. I know losing to Andy Ruiz was a huge setback, but he's got to come back out there and face those demons. He's going to have to. So yeah, Olaf the Mighty says that it's been over a decade since we got a new boxing video game. What's up with that? I don't know, man. I think that's a criminally disgrace. It's criminally sad to see that we haven't gotten one ever since what I think it was 2004. It was a Fight Nights on EA Sports. I think there's a new game coming out called ESBC, but it hasn't really made no traction. So I mean, it's sad though. We in due for a new boxing game. We definitely need one, man. It's sad that we haven't had one in 16 years. In fact, the WNBA's even got a fucking video game. I mean, come on, man. They've had it for the last 3 years under the 2K brand. So if the WNBA can get a video game, why the fuck boxing can't get one? Fucking UFC got a fucking video game. Pro wrestling got their video games. I mean, come on, man. A boxer definitely need one. Let's see. Ron Faker says that the zone has made the best matches all year. ESPN's a distant second. You know what? Can't argue that. I know PBC and ESPN's probably tied for second in that department, but the zone, yeah, I'll be truthful here. The zone has definitely had better matchups this year than the other outlets. They have. So we got to give them props for that. To be fair, though, we still have a whole year to go, and the PBC's got a damn good lineup coming up. So we'll see if the zone can keep up with that lineup that came out. So we'll see. Uh, AJ needs that belt if he wants undisputed. That's saying that's what he's been chasing. Yeah, good point. Good point, Kiwi. Good point. Again, if he vacates that belt, it will look bad on him. It really will look bad if he vacates that belt. And again, a duck is a duck. There's no other way of getting around that. There's no other way of describing it. It's a duck. Plain and simple. Okay, let me get into this last top topic before I wrap it up, guys. The last topic is Deontay Wilder's controversial interview with Ray Flores. And I'm also going to describe why Wilder's name is a gold mine for YouTubers. And you know what? Let's start with this interview here. And this interview kind of pissed me off, man. And at the same time, I understand why Wilder's doing it, but at the same time, it still pisses me off to hear what he said in his interview. Now, Deontay Wilder, he's my favorite heavyweight, no question about it. But when I hear him speak incoherently, or sometimes he's giving off these, he speaks in third person, it fucking is cringy, man, and it pisses me off because as an interviewer or a commentator, you're interviewing a guy and he continues to give you third person answers, or he speaks incoherently. I'm not saying you have to be the smartest guy in the world, but god damn it, answer the questions directly. Stop speaking in third person. I'm getting tired of hearing Deontay doing that shit. Does that mean he's dumb? No. Some people may feel he's dumb, but that's not true. No. Just because you speak in third person doesn't mean you're stupid. It just means that you just don't have the ability to answer questions straightforward, or you don't want to answer questions straightforward. So it's either one of the two. Okay. And when he went on to this diatribe and saying that, Fury won because of white privilege, this, that, and the third. And I've seen a lot of YouTubers and all these guys agreeing with that. And to me, the reason why they agree with that is because they're grifting off that bullshit about, about the tribalism in boxing, which has existed for many, many decades and centuries. They're grifting off of that. They're making money off that shit. All right. And Deontay Wilder, and I like Deontay, but let's be honest here. The reason why he's saying the things he's saying right now because I think he knows this is going to sell the fight between him and Fury because there's a lot of people that still want him to be knocked out. They don't like him. He knows it. Okay. And then the reason why Deontay knows that is because he said it himself in that interview with Ray Flores. He said, look, whenever you say anything, and I'm only paraphrasing what he said, he says, whenever people say things about me, whether it's negative or if it's positive, mainly if it's a negative response, I like that. I like that response. He said, I like it because I keep the conversation going. And see, when I heard that, I was like, you know what? He purposely say these things because he knows he's going to get a reaction, whether it's positive, whether it's negative. He knows that, and I've been saying this for a long time now. And I don't know. I know a lot of people question his intellect, but he's very intellectual in that department because he knows if he continues to say stupid shit and speak incoherently, he's going to get a reaction, and that's what he wants. And a lot of people play into that shit too. Real talk. They play into that. So again, I think all these guys who are jumping on this bullshit are grifting off of Wilder's name. And to be fair, not but those guys, and they know who they are. The detractors who don't like Wilder are grifting off his fucking name too because they know there's a whole bunch of them, their supporters and their audience who cannot stand Deontay Wilder. If you trash the man, they want to hear that and they're going to give you super chats because you trashed him. Or if you support what he says, they're going to give you super chats. So it's all about money if you think about it, grifting off the man's name. Let's be real. And at the same time, does not excuse Deontay for the shit that he said in that interview. I did not like that interview at all. I did not like it. But again, I understand his angle on that interview, where he was going with it. He's trying to promote that third fight. And he got a negative reaction out of it, and that's exactly what he got. I didn't want to comment on this, but I had to because it was too cringy and it was so upsetting for me to watch that interview. It was. He was doing a good job of just keeping his mouth shut and focus on his training. I like that, and I like that he's working on. He realizes that he's has to work on some new things in his training. Going work on some new things and going back to the fundamentals, going up against Tyson Fury. I understand, and I'm very, very, very happy to hear and see that he realizes that. Okay, so there's another thing that was very interesting, and I actually agree with this too. He said in that interview that Tyson Fury had a better chance of beating me last year opposed to now. And you know what? I actually agree with that statement. You know why? Because after Wilder took that beating for Fury in that second fight, they were scheduled to rematch in July of last year. Of course, COVID hit, it slowed the whole process down, and they canceled the fight. I get all that. But me personally, I at the time had said that Wilder stood no chance in that rematch because I think he had the way he took that loss and the beating that he took. I don't think he was going to be prepared not only physically. I think he would have been prepared physically, but mentally was the problem. I don't think he was going to be ready mentally going into that rematch. Okay, because after that loss, you see how he reacted after that loss months later after he came out and spoke. He didn't take it very well. And there are some regards right now that he hasn't taken it very well. He hasn't quite gotten over it. But to be fair, I think he's gotten over that loss more so now than it was back then. Late last year. So my point is that Fury would have probably whitewashed Wilder last year if he had taken that fight. If that fight went down. Okay. Now that Fury's been out of the ring for such long stretches of time, he's not the most disciplined fighter. He always blows up in between weights during, between fights. He doesn't always stay in the best shape too. And that's the thing about Fury is that Wilder may be right because he might have caught Fury at a perfect time. Yes, Fury could come out and say, I'm training, I'm staying off social media. But looking at him now, I don't think Fury's in the best fighting shape right now. He's got about 7 weeks to fucking get prepared for this fight. I'm not saying Wilder's going to win it, but my point is that Wilder has a better chance of winning this fight now than he did last year, if that rematch took place in July. And also if you look at the betting odds, Fury's only a 3-1 favorite to win that fight. Most places they have them 2-1. So you wonder why the odds are so close. It's because of what happened last year with the pandemic. Wilder has been training. He's been showing new tools. We haven't seen there's yet to there's more yet to come in that situation. Fury's been out there and he's been fucking bullshitting. He's doing all these tour dates. He's like not in some cases he's not taking his fight seriously. So people look at that and say, you know what? Wilder may have a better chance of winning that fight. He has a better chance. So don't be surprised if Fury gets knocked out and loses that fight. I'll tell you that right now. Don't be surprised. Me personally, I'm picking it in Fury to win the fight, but I think it's going to be a much tougher fight than he anticipates. We're going to see a different Deontay Wilder. I really believe that. I really do. All right, so Ron Finkley says that yeah, Wilder don't like human beings. I mean, I wouldn't say that. It's just that he doesn't like to be challenged. That's what it is about Deontay, and that's why he surrounds himself with yes men. And to be fair, Tyson Fury is the same fucking way. He doesn't like to be challenged. He doesn't like being told what to do. And this has been, this is well documented by Fury. They're both guys who don't like being told what to do, and they get highly sensitive when people criticize them, give them 1 ounce of constructive criticism. They don't like it. So yeah, both of them. It's very cringy, bro. I mean, I think Deontay tries too damn hard and he's not being himself. Yeah, that's the thing, though. I was like, Deontay, be yourself, man. And that's why I said this years ago. I said, you know what? Deontay Wilder is not the villain that people portray him out to be. That's just not his character. He's a good guy at heart, but he has to play this character because he knows controversy sells, sells the product, it sells the image, and that's what he's going for. He's trying to take a page out of the Floyd Mayweather playbook. That's what he's doing. Olive the Mighty says The Rock spoke in third person. Maybe Wilder's trying to take a page out of the WWF playbook. Well, I mean, hate to say it, The Rock actually was better at constructing his sentences when he spoke in third person. So it made sense and it was very believable. No disrespect to Deontay, but he doesn't speak in third person very well as The Rock does. Or The Undertaker. Let's be real. Let's see. I think Glovegate was used to promote the third fight to begin with. You know what, Percy? I have to agree with that because that's what my initial thoughts were on that. Because if this was such a serious issue to the point that Tyson Fury and his camp were trying to defend themselves in that situation, why haven't they taken this? Haven't they taken legal action against Deontay Wilder for allegedly slandering them for over this situation? Why haven't they done that? Yes, they have addressed it here and there, but they haven't even taken that to court. Why? I find that very bizarre because if they haven't done that, that gives a lot of people the assumption that what happened in that second fight was indeed true. I'm not saying it happened. I'm telling you that right now. But I'm going to be honest here. When I saw the condition of those gloves and the way they looked in that fight, I felt that something was odd with those gloves. I really think they were. Something was odd. But again, I can't harp on that. I can't dwell on that. If it was investigated as the commissioner said they investigated it, then we have to leave it at that and not continue to dwell on it. Because if you continue to dwell on it, it comes off as if that you are a sore loser. You can't come over a defeat or get over a defeat. Plain and simple. And I'm stuttering here. Sorry, guys. So yeah, I think the glove gate is there to promote that third fight. No question about it. Wilder is in a state of confusion. Dude needs some direction from a competent boxing advisor who has his best interests at heart. Yeah, it's funny though because Shelly Finkel is his advisor, and Shelly Finkel, who gave an interview recently with Sky Sports, a very thoughtful interview. He said, "Look, Deontay shouldn't have ever said those things that he said." Okay, and Shelly Finkel is one of those guys that's gonna tell Deontay what he needs to hear, and Deontay may not like that, but that's what an advisor does, right? The advisor is not exactly a yes man. So, um, yeah, I think Shelly Finkel needs to be more involved in Deontay Wilder's PR campaign. He needs to be more involved in that because whoever is running Deontay Wilder's campaign or Deontay chooses to run himself, somebody need to give him that direction on what to say and what not to say. Because to me, he speaks speaks more as if he's thinking out loud, and that's something he needs to understand that he can't do all the time. So, yeah, Raider, what's happening, man? What's happening? Mr. Boxing today said that he always says that there is Deontay Wilder and there's the Bronze Bomber. Maybe Wilder is being a character when he's being interviewed sometimes. Who knows? Yeah, and that's something. I think he does this shit on purpose because he knows he's going to get a reaction. That's what he wants. He even admitted that in that interview with Ray Flores a couple of days ago or yesterday. The interview was yesterday. He even admitted that. And I've been telling people this for a long time now, but people don't want to hear that. They don't want to believe the fact that that's the case. That Wilder is actually strategically saying these things, and they think he's just plain out stupid. But I think he's being stupid on purpose on some occasions. I think he is because he wants a reaction, and he's getting a reaction. My doctor says I wouldn't be surprised if we learned that Fury has been on that nosy candy recently. Yeah, you know what? Here's the thing about this too. Tyson Fury not too long ago posted that he's gonna go into training camp. He's gonna stay off social media. Any further updates is gonna come from my management team. Then within the next 40 hours or 24 hours, whatnot, Tyson Fury comes out with something else on Instagram and social media. And then I know at the bottom says this posted by Team Fury. I find that hard to believe because Tyson Fury is a man who's not really viewed to have honesty and integrity. All right. I still believe that he's still on social media somehow, some way. But he's putting the fact that, oh, my team, my admin team is going to run my social media accounts. I don't believe that one bit. I really don't. Okay. I think Tyson Fury at this point is overconfident about this third fight with Wilder, and that's very dangerous. Just like Wilder was overconfident in their second fight. So he needs to get his act together, man. He doesn't have that much time. So yeah, I'll be very weary about Fury's well being going into that fight. In fact, his father John doesn't seems to be very concerned too because he doesn't seem very confident about his son's chances in that third fight. He doesn't. And usually John Fury is always confident about Tyson Fury in every fight that he's involved in. And he's always right on he's usually right about the outcome. In this case, he may be right about the fact that his son may lose the fight. So we'll see. We'll see how this plays out on July 24th. If he had a smudging of AJ's humbleness and love for boxing, I like him, but his ability to lose round after round is stressful, and is that bullshit talking he's doing it makes him a disgrace. You know what, man? I think Deontay loves the sport of boxing. I think he loves it. But to your point about him losing round for round just for looking for that one punch to end the fight, I agree, man. I didn't like that Luis Ortiz rematch performance. The first fight he performed a lot better, even though he got hurt. But he literally wasn't really trying to punch in that fight, and yet he was just looking for that one shot. And I'm like wondering, did he even train for this fight? And Wilder didn't look that athletic. He didn't look, he didn't really look sharp. He didn't really look loose in that ring in that rematch, and he still got Ortiz out of there. But still, he didn't look right to me. And I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? He's not even moving around the ring. He's not fast on his feet. He's not using his reflexes. He's not moving his head. What's Wilder doing in there? So, I mean, to your point though, it's like he's willing to give up rounds just to look for one good shot. I think he needs to stop doing that. It had caught up with him in that Fury rematch, and I think Deontay understands that now, and that's why he's working on a lot of things in training camp. And he realized that he's got to be busier and active around. That doesn't mean you always have to look for one shot in every round. You're gonna have to put your punches together. And believe me, Deontay did that early in his career, even as early on as a champion. Look at that Duhaupas fight, how he fought from the back foot, how he fought in the inside, throwing uppercuts, throwing hooks to the body, and throwing hooks to the head. This guy was throwing a lot of combinations against Duhaupas in that fight. Look at his punch value. Then after that fight, he abandoned it. He relied more on his distance and his power. And I didn't like that. I was like, why did you abandon all the other abilities that he had? I understand why Deontay did that. It is again. It just catches up to you when your bad habits are continuing to linger on. So, yeah, to your point, Ron Finkley, I do agree to the extent of what you said there. I wouldn't call him a disgrace, but He just needs to be humbled a bit more and take shit seriously. Um, Either way, Wilder will be better ready to deal with Fury's physicality and roughhousing. All the footage I've seen from Fury, he's sitting down and his punches coming forward. Yeah, and that's another thing too in that second fight. And there's another thing people don't like to point out. Yes, Fury got the win, but Fury got away with a lot of punches in the back of the head. He got away with quite a few of them, and never got warned for that once. And all that leaning and all that, all that holding on his, on top of his head. Nah, I don't think Fury's going to be able to get away with it this time around. Nah, he won't. I think that's one of the things that he's worried about. Fury and his father may be worried about going to the rematch because they may not be able to get away with the tactics like they did in that rematch in that second fight. So we'll see. Ron Fink said that he said himself that he doesn't like human beings in that interview. Bad decision talking points. Yeah, I mean, I don't think he really meant it. That's my whole point. Is that he says stupid shit just to get a reaction. I don't think when Deontay talks, sometimes I don't really believe what he says sometimes. I really don't. I do believe when he wants to knock a guy out, he wants to knock a guy out. It's to Percy's point. I think he's trying to be a character that he's not in real life. Let's be real. Outside of this shit, Deontay Wilder's a smart man. He's made smart investments. He's vested his money pretty well. Does he does outlandish spending? Uh, I wouldn't say he does, but he does manage his money pretty well. So from the looks of it. So yeah. Kiwi says, do you have a broadcast for the Lemieux card there, Dan? You know what? I don't know, man. I didn't know Lemieux was fighting tonight, so I have to check and see where it's who's broadcasting the fight. I'm not sure if ESPN is doing it. I'm not sure if the Zone is doing it, or Showtime. That for that matter, I don't know. I have to look into that. Ron Fink says that right hand and that time off is the only thing that will keep him competitive. Hopefully, I'm just looking for a boxing clinic and all that crap goes away. You know what? I think we're going to see a different Deontay Wilder. Like I said, I think we're going to see the Wilder that showed up in the Duhofis fight that was using all type of skills, and we're going to see the Wilder that showed up in that Stefan fight. The first Stefan fight that it is, where he actually was boxing and was moving around and not relying on that one shot, using his jab effectively, using the hooks, using some uppercuts from time to time. But the one thing he didn't do with Severn is that he fought on the inside. So he kept his distance and fought well off the back foot. But in the Duhopov fight, he was fighting off the back foot and he was fighting in the inside. He was smothering Duhopov's work just to keep him off of him. So to just negate his jab. So he was, yeah, I think that Deontay Wilder will see come back. Fury shouldn't be coming in with overconfidence that he can walk through every Wilder right hand. Curious to see if Fury tries to overwhelm Wilder with a high guard pressure and no head movement. That's a good point, Mr. Boxing today. If you also notice in that first round in that second fight, or maybe the second round, Wilder clipped Fury with a good right hand, and Fury was stunned by that too. He was stunned. Not saying he was hurt, but he was stunned by that shot. Imagine if Wilder was in better shape for that fight, and he could have landed that right hand at will if he was in better shape. When Fury got caught with that hand, he got caught. He was hurt. I mean, not hurt, but he was stunned pretty badly. I mean, pretty good, I should say. So, um, yeah, I think Fury's gonna have to be extra careful because let's put it this way: him walking through Wilder in that second fight, he was able to do that after the third round because when he caught Wilder with that shot, which is arguably behind the back of the head when Wilder went down, Wilder didn't recover from that. He couldn't get his footing, and he couldn't get his leg. He didn't really have his leg, so I think Fury won't be able to do that this time around. I think he'll be resorting to boxing, and then if things does get tough for him, he might try to come forward. He might take chances, but if we could get the Wilder that showed up by fighting in the inside, throwing, become very clever at throwing, of creating punches in close quarters like he did against Duopod, then that's a dangerous fighter for Tyson Fury or for Wilder. I mean, as in Wilder, I should say. So yeah. Let me see. What up, Terrence? The Texan. Watching too much Avengers. Yeah. Percy says, yeah, he does sound stupid when he rambles like that. Yeah, he does. I'm not saying Wilder's a stupid guy, but It's just that the way he talks, like he rambles all over the place, and it's just annoying. It's like, dude, just answer the question straightforward. I mean, it's nothing wrong with doing that. Stop talking in third person, man. You don't have to answer every single question in third person and rambling. That's why people don't get what you're saying. Now, if you're from the South, maybe people understand that lingual, but still, man, you're talking to a different audience. But again, I think he does it on purpose because he wants a negative reaction. So that's just my opinion. Yeah, what up, Terrence? Raider, as always. I think Wilder is an interesting character. Reminds me of Steven Seagal. I'm hoping for a good fight though. It nearly landed around my birthday last year. Hey, you know what, Terrence? I think it's gonna be more of an interesting fight than a good fight than it was the second fight. It might be better than the first fight. I really predict that's what's gonna happen. I do think Fury's gonna win it, but I would not be surprised if Wilder wins that fight. In fact, I have a weird feeling that Wilder may win that fight. I just have that feeling that he will. I'm not picking him to win it, but I have a feeling that he will somehow, some way. And I know I heard Ring IQ say this. He think this is all set up for Wilder to win so they can have a fourth fight. The way this whole thing played out, stringing Joshua and Hearn along in this situation. Um, I wouldn't doubt that. It's possible the way this thing is played out, but at the same time, let's say, if it does come to be reality of what Q is saying, we have to see a dive from Tyson Fury, or yeah, if he takes a dive in that fight, then that there is indication that they have planned this all along to have Wilder win so they could have a fourth fight. So we'll see. I don't think that's going to be the case, but I wouldn't rule that out as a possibility. So yeah. Let's see. Mr. Boston today says that Fury's unpredictable behavior is what makes him dangerous, in my opinion. He might bend the rules. He might be an outboxer. He might do coke. He might dress up like Batman. He might press for a KO. Yeah, he's a very unpredictable character. You just don't know what you're gonna get from him. Who knows? We might get a Tyson Fury that comes into the fight 290 pounds. I know he came into the last fight 275, but he was in better shape at 275 when he fought Wilder. If he comes in at 290 or 280, right now I think he's around that. He's around that weight. He's around 270, 78 or 280. He doesn't look like he's in good fighting shape right now. I mean, he's got 7 weeks, 7 or 8 weeks. He could turn that around, but I don't know, man. Some tells me Fury's not enthusiastic about this fight. Neither is father. So something's not right there with Fury. Something is wrong. I don't know. That's just my hunch. Sometimes Fury telegraphs those physical tactics he uses. Yeah, he does telegraph sometimes, and sometimes he doesn't turn his punches correctly. And that's the same thing that Sugar Hill pointed out. Great ability, moves like a cat on his feet. He can give you different angles. He's a switch hitter, but sometimes he doesn't, punch correctly. So he doesn't turn his punches over when he throws hooks. So, which is a fact. He doesn't do that sometimes, and he'd be taught that correctly by Sugar Hill Stewart. Even though Wilder lacks the skills to win rounds, he will always have a chance because of his power. It's up to the opponent to time Wilder to not get hit, which is what Fury's executed perfectly. Yeah, that's a good fact. And this is the heavyweight division. This is a very unpredictable division. I mean, there's been many heavyweights, all time greats. And I'm not saying Wilder's in that class. He's nowhere near that class yet. I'll take George Foreman for example. No skills at all. Didn't have had terrible technique. But George Foreman was a great heavyweight, a great champion. Is considered one of the probably a consensus top five greatest heavyweights of all time. George Foreman always had that piston jab. That was his primary weapon, and he had that dangerous right cross. That was his primary weapon. And George Foreman used that very well. He was never a fast fighter, too. Let's not mind you, he was never the fastest either. He was somewhat of a slow guy, but he was very dangerous and very powerful. He had that power that and his durability too that kept him through fights that made him all time great. So again, Deontay Wilder's not in that class, but what I'm pointing out is that, or he's not in that class. What I'm pointing out is that in the heavyweight division is not always about skill. It's about certain abilities that get you through fights. Plain and simple. I did like the beautiful distance that he finally gained to put Fury on his back, but Fury seems like on a mission in the autopsy current match to be televised. Yeah, but Fury's more motivated in that fight, in those first two fights. Let's be real. He was very motivated to win. Bro, I'm from the South and I still live in the South, and Wilder sounds stupid when he talks like that. Hey, you know better than I do, Percy. So I hear you, man. Wilder has an underrated check left hook too when he decides to use. Yeah, you know what, Mister Boxer Day? If you look at that dual hot paw fight, I saw one instance when he was moving on his toes, right? He was going he was moving to the back of the ropes and he was on his toes. He what he did, he kind of showed a feint a little bit. What he did is that he feinted dual paw where he was trying to throw a right hook or right cross, right? He was Tuipa was anticipating a right coming in, right? But what Wilder did is that he faded that right and he came with his quick check left hook. It was very quick and very powerful. And Dupas didn't see that punch coming. I was like, wow, and he hit him hard with that too. He clipped him very hard, and I'm surprised Dupas didn't go down. Um, so yeah, so basically, yeah, that check. If Wilder uses that, if you can use that weapon more effectively, then yeah, he's gonna be a dangerous fighter in that third fight. Percy says, I do not want to see a third fight. I mean, a fourth fight. Damn, I thought they were both in that glove cape. I thought they were both in that glove cape propaganda to push a third fight. But yeah, I could see some shenanigans to do a fourth fight. I think that's what they're gonna plan to do. Here's the way I look at it. If Fury loses the fight, Wilder gets the belt. Not only he gets the WBC back, but he also gets the ring belt, and he also gets the lineal championship, where Wilder will be the recognized heavyweight champion of that division. Fury will go off. He'll probably fight. Let's say if AJ vacates the WBO belt, because that's a high probability right now. If he vacates, then Usyk is up fighting for that belt, right? And let's say if he does win it, or Joe Joyce wins that belt, Fury's gonna fight the winner who's gonna fight that WBO champion if he loses. I'll tell you that right now. If he does that and he beats that WBO champion, anticipate and expect a Wilder fourth fight, and this time it'll be a unification bout for both of the WBC and the WBO, along with the ring and lineal championship. Watch, that could happen, and that will warrant a fourth fight. Believe it or not, it's a unification bout. This time you got two champions going at each other. So yeah, if either guy wins, this should be let's see. If either guy wins, they should immediately leave fighting each other alone. Look for legacy status elsewhere, bro. I agree. I agree. I don't think we should get a fourth fight. I mean, if you do get a fourth fight and Wilder ends up winning, then yeah, let the fourth fight go down the road. But like as I pointed out, the scenario, if Fury comes back and he wins the title, the WBO, and then he ends in an agreement to fight Wilder the fourth time, then yeah, I think that's warranted. So yeah, Foreman did have good footwork and knew how to cut off the ring. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, Foreman did have good footwork, but his technique was terrible. We all know that he didn't have the best punch coordination at all. It was terrible technique, but he did have that great jab. He had that good right hook. I mean, the right cross that got him through fights. I mean, his hooks were extremely wide hooks, but they were very powerful though. I mean, this dude was punching when windmills like you could see coming from a mile, and they were pretty slow too. But he still were effective with them those shots. uh, Percy says to Ron Finkley, "I don't trust neither one of them. To tell you the truth, I can see the loser set up in a media rematch. Yeah, that loser could be Tyson Fury from the looks of it." uh, Fury had an extended step in that jab that hurt Wilder if Wilder tried that left hook. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Fury does have the slightly longer reach than Wilder, so yeah, he could definitely negate that left hook if he could use that jab to discourage Wilder from throwing that hook. So yeah, that's why I'm not buying this one to enjoy. I used to enjoy Wilder fights, but this was a terrible year as a fan of him. Yeah, I mean, look, when he lost, it was a terrible year. I mean, that's the only fight he had was in 2020 was against Fury, and this is the only fight he has this year. let's be honest here. As much as we give Wilder, a lot of criticism, a lot of shit that he gets from all of us, he's still an exciting fighter. He does add a great value to the heavyweight division. And believe it or not, he is one of the biggest cash cows in the heavyweight division. Is he the cash cow? No, he's not. But if anyone who fights him, they will get paid. Let's be real. They will get paid if they eat any other heavyweight like a Charles Martin or a Andy Ruiz or Dillian White. If they fight either one of those guys fight them, they will get paid. Plain and simple. Uh, the same goes for Theory, and then obviously AJ's number is number one. So yeah. Uh, loss one. One loss may gain five more power to. Well, yeah. All right. Well, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. It's good to have you guys come on, man. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Ron Finkel, as always, man. Ron Finkley, uh, Fight Doctor, Percy, uh, Mr. Boxer Today, Terrence, Raider. Who else is in? Who Haplotype, who came in momentarily. Bruce Goes, JD. So Olaf the Mighty. So I appreciate you guys for coming in. Oh yeah, Big Boys Boxing Kiwi. Shout out to you guys for coming in. I really appreciate it. Until next time, I'm out. Peace.